Yes, it can be argued that the devil is at war with everyone. And the biggest deception of all is that all of our bias, hatred, and intolerance is blessed by some unseen God. In other words, God's on our side if we hate this certain group. That's not how it works, guys. You know, it's not up to us to judge. It's up to God to judge. We're supposed to love and forgive. We're supposed to be those who believe in repentance. We're supposed to believe in all this stuff, but apparently not. The perception that is the biggest lie, I think, is that, you know, people like to think that what they do means God is in control. No. What you're doing is what you're doing. God is observing. God is taking notes. God is always in control, and the controlling mechanisms are for him. You know, it's all about the light, not about the darkness. And I'm talking about all kinds of darkness. Intolerance, hatred, anger, all these things. Many people feel that they have no control fending off these large-scale attacks from what could be seen as a demonic army or a demonic virus of some kind. Good and evil have now blurred together, and those shades of gray continue to baffle even those who claim to know the mysteries of God or to understand the devil. The mysteries remain mysteries for a reason, and that's, I mean, there seems to be some indication that the reason why the planet is in chaotic state right now, is because some dark and chaotic thought processes have slipped in under the radar, resulting in what I can only see as demonic plague or some sort of priestcraft or witchery that puts us into this mass psychosis, this mass formation, they call it. This is something that goes beyond satanic panic. And pointing the finger at suspected devil worshippers or some half-baked militant Christian witch hunt or whatever you want to do, it's not going to take care of the problem, because this is evil that is darker, and it's in control of some of the major governments of this world and some of the major religions of this world. This is a concerted effort to change the rules and encourage treachery and barbarism for the promise of reward from what is called the unseen synarch. We've talked about the synarch before. The dark combination. It's the dark combination that seems to be in power today. The question you need to ask yourself is, which God is getting all the adoration of our religious and government leaders? All policies now seem to be anti-religion and lack the basic foresight for a future where our children will be able to live in a world where there will be peace. They'll be able to live in a world where they can make choices. They'll be able to live in the world where they're not going to be groomed. You understand? Groomed to be something they're not. Groomed to be something that they say that they can identify with, rather than being a person, a human, a child of God. The darker forces are always showing their power when blood is spilled in acts of war. And pain is the new normal, my friends. This is the new normal. The new normal is pain. Pain, and it's not going to be, you know, it's not surprising to see that these darker manifestations appear everywhere, in public, television, radio, internet. The book of Daniel, part of the Old Testament, described a future time where there would be a corrupt government that would espouse barbarism and declare it ordained by God. It is be the worldwide government that has left its helm. There's a prince at the helm that pays homage to unknown gods that aren't known by fathers, and that they would be able to somehow corner consciousness and able to distribute it into avatars that would rule like robots. It would rule like, they'd be tyrannical and inhuman. Consciousness is in the process of being quantified now for artificial intelligence, and it will eventually be transferred into other bodies through ritual and scientific practice. It's essential for the transhumanist culture to download a soul, either corrupt or otherwise, into an avatar. This would be the perfect AI. The perfect AI. It's like, I guess you could see it, you could call it reverse exorcism, where instead of removing an evil spirit, one can be put into the body, whether it's an organic body or an artificial body. Imagine the act of fourth dimensional beings being placed in a body instead of being exorcised by the clergy. It's an act of reverse exorcism where walk-in spirits will be conjured and placed in the body of someone who is open to the idea. Imagine going in and having a spirit put in you. Take on a whole new idea of spiritual role-playing, wouldn't it? Where the spirit or demonic entity would be cast into the body, much like the same way Jesus cast those evil spirits into pigs. Remember that story in the Bible? It would be a perversion, for sure. It would be a perversion and an abuse of power. And I've always been taught that God will not be mocked, but they do it all the time, these technocrats. They play God, or they take the matters of God into their own hands. Technocrats do that. They're well known for it, and they will do anything to be able to harness that power and control it. What I find interesting is that recently it was announced that demonic possession is now recognized in the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's called possession trance disorder, a possible variant of dissociative identity disorder. In the DSM-5, it says here, spirit possession falls under the category of dissociative disorder, not otherwise specified, with more specific research criteria, but not in official diagnosis, fitting dissociative disorder, trance disorder, progression trance disorder. Now, what is interesting about this is how it's worded. I was reading it over today. It says, possession trance involves replacement of the customary sense of personal identity by a new identity attributed to the influence of a spirit, power, deity, or other person, and associated with stereotyped involuntary movements or amnesia, and is perhaps the most common dissociative disorder. That's a broad definition, right? I mean, it's broad enough to include a lot of things, right? I mean, think about this. So you identify as, or you're under the influence of a spirit, a power, a deity, or another person. Okay. So that's pretty broad. I mean, that's broad enough to include anyone who identifies as someone other than themselves. I mean, it's like live action role playing, right? Live action role players and those who identify as different genders, of men trapped in women's bodies or women that are trapped in the body of a male. Possession? Really? I don't know if it's possession trance, but still. I mean, how about a demon captured and placed into the body of a political leader or a teacher or someone else we trust? I mean, do we even think about this for a moment? Do we ever think that maybe, look, if people can identify as a woman or a male or a woman, and they're not that, or if they identify as a vampire or they identify as a werewolf, right? I mean, many of these killers, like Ed Gein, I mean, they didn't necessarily identify as a werewolf, but I mean, hey, if they wear the skins of women and howl at the moon, I don't know what you'd call that. Sick, yeah, but come on, it's pretty demonic if you really want to think about it. So we look at disorder of identity alteration, and they say that it happens in an altered state of consciousness. So this means that if there's a means by which you can alter the state of one's consciousness through drugs or trauma or something else, it's possible to create another personality or open the victim up for an unnatural or profane possession. So this indicates that, from what I can gather, that altered states of mind that we read about in some of the MK Ultra cases are certainly part of this dissociative trance disorder, or they're induced so you could actually create another personality in someone through trauma or through trance, meditation, or hypnosis, or even drugs. You can use psychedelics or whatever to make it happen.